Hi, Satnam, it's me, Shakti Sundari, and I'm back with you today, reading again from Daniel Odier's amazing book, The Desire, the Tantric Path to Awakening. Today's little message is titled, The Urge to Merge. I'm just reading a chapter 7 from this book, which is all about our original experience of oneness, of unity. And this notion of unity consciousness, of oneness is something that everyone in the conscious New Age world talks about all the time. But also it's something that affects everybody actually. Perhaps they know it, perhaps they don't know it. But if ever you have that feeling of loneliness that I talked about in one of my earlier videos, of separation, of being on your own in this world, then you're touching into that core wounding, as it were, of ego separation. And this is what drives so many of us, probably what drives all of us, to want to merge with another. This drive actually is what is behind so much of our projections and romantic fantasies. This is what is behind so much of having sex, to feel close to another, to lose oneself for a moment in that experience of oneness. But then quite quickly, if that encounter isn't really within a sphere of love and consciousness, actually that same feeling of separation and loneliness will return very quickly. So the solution isn't really in the merger with another, whether it's romantic or sexual. The solution really is in understanding that we are already merged. It's just that we are forgetting and we've forgotten. So just going to read a little bit from chapter 7, which is called Experiencing Totality, First Experience. Where does it come from, this intuition we have that there could be identity between us and the world? No one suggested it to us. No one has supported us when we've expressed our feelings or intuitions about unity. Why do we persist so determinedly in thinking that this union is possible? Quite simply, it is because we have had a direct, intimate experience of it, and so our certainty is inalienable. We lived this experience well before our conditioning took place. So I'm just going to speak to that first and then read a little bit more. In this chapter, Daniel Odier talks about our experience as embryos and as infants, when we are one with the mother. You know, physically we are one, and that is programmed into our neurons, into our cells, that feeling, that cellular memory of unity. Now, what he doesn't talk about here, but what I also want to mention, is that in my own framework of belief or understanding, there's also something before that, which is that we come from oneness. We are, we are sparks of the divine that incarnate in this particular lifetime, in this particular body. But before we incarnated, we are one with the all. And so really, for me, this memory goes back before that. It goes right back to prior to inception and creation. But yeah, in this chapter, Daniel Odier talks about that cellular memory we have as embryos and as infants of oneness. And then how, from the minute that we are born, those cells in the brain, the neurons in the brain, begin to die. And we begin to forget as the ego self develops. And then I'm going to skip forward to the last bit. The development of this idea of separation, more cultural than personal, is it inevitable? While the ego develops very early on, well before the appearance of language, there appears along with it the feeling of separateness, which the tone of our whole culture will accelerate. So look around you, so many aspects of our culture and our societal and familial and religious conditioning emphasize the fact that we are separate, in it for ourselves, against the other. So notice that. We must distinguish ourselves. We must rise to challenges, show how brilliant and competent we are. And none of this happens without inflation of the ego. How does it happen then that when we have fulfilled all these functions with brio, this nostalgia for unity still affects us? It is simply because this is our essential nature. We can no more forget it than when we forget to breathe. Yeah, I'm going to speak to that. When I first entered the world of Tantra, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years ago now, I can't really recall, but quite a while ago, it's very interesting to me that quite often I would encounter people who have been incredibly successful in the world, in the material world, in the competitive world, in the business world, really successful, like high achieving investment bankers, lawyers, doctors, and so forth. Okay, so just as Daniel Odier speaks to, they have risen to the challenge with brio, they've really made it in life. And yet there was this emptiness, there was this seeking that was still there within them. So however much external success, material wealth, accolades they might have achieved, there was still this yearning back to finding their true nature, knowing there was something else, not knowing exactly what it is, but knowing they had to go and find it. And if we really stop and listen, this is why so many of us are afraid of being alone. When we sit truly alone, without doing, without filling our days with manic activity, without filling our days with our iPhones, with our smartphones, with our televisions, with our alcohol, with our drugs, with our sex, without filling our moments with that, with the distraction, with the narcosis of all of that, if we just sit with who we are, can we really be still with who we are and be content? Can we really be still with who we are and feel complete without needing to project that yearning for merging onto another? So that is what drives us. And the beautiful thing is that this path of Tantra has an answer. It supports us in remembering our true nature, which is united, which is one. And it's not that oneness that we find with another, although actually through this practice, it's more likely that we can find true oneness with another. But it's not about that, actually. It's about that inner union, that inner merger, that remembrance that we are already whole. And the pathway to that, as Daniel Odier discusses in this book, desire, is through pleasure and through the senses and through our desire, but not in the way that we might think. The urge to merge, that's it. That's my message for today. Thank you so much for being with me. And once again, I'll go ahead and look at your comments and respond to any that are there, because I love interacting with you and hearing what you have to say and what your impressions are. So thank you so much for watching, and join me again next time for a little bit more from Desire. Much love and Sat Nam.